Hello, this is Elise. Welcome to my Screencast-O-Matic. In this presentation, I am reviewing our last couple weeks in our ELA methods class. So in week 2, we'll start with week 2. Close reading was one of the key components of or key focuses of that period of instruction. So we looked really closely at close reading and we discussed how vital it is that we provide our students with these tools that they can use to approach reading that will aid in their comprehension and in their learning. So be it reading and rereading, pre-teaching of vocabulary, annotating, just really interacting with the text, and providing students with prompts or guides of what to look for, what to be conscious of as they're reading through the text, so that they might leave that text with a better understanding of the meaning and the message. We also discussed literacy strategies. We talked about teaching techniques. Like schema, for example, we're talking about like students' existing knowledge, and scaffolding is the tools or the support that we might offer students who are struggling at first. And of course, these scaffolds aren't permanent. They're meant to just sort of assist in the students kind of grasping these concepts, and as they practice, the scaffolds should be taken away. Modeling, of course, is the teacher demonstrating first what the expectations are for the student so that they can see essentially how to do what it is that we're asking of them. And then we talked about the zone of proximal development and MKO. So we're moving on to week 3. In week 3, we talked about academic language. The homework for this week was, just leading up to this week, focused mostly on vocabulary instruction. So we talked a lot about deciding which words need to be taught in order to help students comprehend the material, and how to go about doing that in a productive and effective way. And then in week 3, we kind of recap that and then focus more so on the development in our students of their academic language. So academic language, as we learned, is essentially the students' vocabulary that they will need to be successful in our classes, but also successful in other professional or school environments. So obviously academic language is particular to whatever that particular community is, be it a professional environment or a school environment. So the more equipped a student is with vocabulary for that particular community, the better off they'll be, or the more successful they'll be in that particular community. And then we looked extensively at the Common Core standards. So we familiarized ourselves with the website, which was important because it's a vital resource that we as educators need in order to plan effective and appropriate lessons for whatever our grade levels are. We also looked closely at the lesson plan templates for our disciplines and became familiar with those as they will obviously be important for the EdTPA and for planning lessons in the future. Week 4, we spent a good amount of time discussing background knowledge. We read Marzano's first chapter, and we learned about the importance of background knowledge and the correlation, the positive correlation between background knowledge and students' academic success. So we know that background knowledge, obviously there are several different types. There are many, countless different types of background knowledge, but what we're particularly concerned with is our students' academic background knowledge. So obviously we know that the greater a student's academic background knowledge is, the more successful we'll be in building on that and helping them to be successful academically. And we also discussed the importance of providing students with opportunity to establish a background knowledge before getting into concepts or texts, just to kind of level the playing field. We talked about crystallized intelligence and fluid intelligence, which fits nicely with background knowledge. Essentially, it's just this concept that, fluid intelligence essentially is one's ability to pick up new concepts and new knowledge rather easily, and then store it or retain it essentially forever, kind of file it away in the mental schema, where it's then considered crystallized intelligence. And then we looked at the ERWC template. And we talked a lot about effective instructional sequencing, which prepared us for that week's homework. And that leads me to week 5. So we talked a lot about, in this last class, we talked a lot about the Schmoker and Gallagher readings, and of course the template. In terms of planning our lessons in such a way that it's effective for learning development and retention of the material. It provides students an opportunity to be engaged, and different strategies to keep students motivated. Particularly, I'd like to focus on Gallagher's chapter. I think it was chapter 2 or maybe chapter 3. There were just so many activities here that were strategically placed throughout the lesson plans that I thought were just genius ways for the students to approach the literature and kind of grapple with concepts, and be prepared to discuss it, and then of course write about it. So we spent a lot of time discussing what we read in terms of how we might apply that in our own classrooms. And then, of course, we also discussed at length Burke's chapter 5 and his tips, I guess you could say, for teaching reading, which was essentially done in the Cornell notes. We met in small groups and kind of compared and shared. So yeah, essentially what it boils down to is the importance of giving students literature that they'll be motivated to read, something that they're interested in, and framing it in such a way that will make it applicable or relevant, and then also stressing the importance of providing students an opportunity to choose what they read and choose how they read, and several other really awesome little tricks to get students excited about reading, and keep them engaged in our lessons. So yeah, real good stuff there. So I think that pretty much sums up my review for weeks 2 through 5 in our methods class. Thanks for listening.